Welcome to another episode of the One Life Podcast, coming straight off Easter weekend,
That's right.
Pastor Jared. And we got a lot to celebrate, so I think we'll open it up with just a little bit of what's your feedback. Saturday, 2 services, Sunday, 4 services between both campuses. Give us a glimpse of what Easter weekend was like.
So definitely not going to give like any numbers. We'll
Okay.
save that to the following weekend so we
All
can
right.
celebrate as a church family. But without a doubt, it was records across the board.
Mhm.
Any weekend, any Easter big day, and even this morning, I went into our finance office but they keep all the records, and I said, "Hey, just pull up like back in Trinity Baptist Church days. What was the biggest Easter?" And the biggest we could find was like 1,200 or something like that. So, oh yeah, we blew through every record. It was one of those really special weekends. You just take a moment, right, and just appreciate what God did.
Yeah.
And not just here, but East Campus was an incredible weekend over there for you guys, and it's just really exciting, man. It was a really, the moments on Sunday afternoon. I'll go home, and Amanda always asks, "Hey, how you feeling?" Like she kind of knows, like if I'm disappointed or excited, and
Mm-hmm.
it was that moment of like, no, I don't know if I would do anything different,
Yeah.
or we could have asked for anything. And I'll mention this on Sunday, like the prayer requests that I had, that I was praying for, and that I thought they were faith goals.
Mm.
We hit every single one of those things. So those are the kind of cool moments of like, all right, God, you're doing something special here,
Yeah.
and we're grateful to be a part of it. Yeah, it's really good. And I'm tired, and you probably tell in the voice, like
Yeah.
it's the Easter hangover. And I didn't drink, right? So the Easter hangover, just like your adrenaline is so high for so long, and all the preparation and the week of prayer, like I crash pretty hard on Sunday afternoon. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of our staff, so that's why we give most of our staff the Monday off.
Yeah.
Just to recap and take a deep breath and rest.
So what do you do to recover? I know we've talked before, and you're like sometimes Sunday you go on a hike or something like that.
Yeah.
So what are you Easter weekend, Sunday afternoon? What is it like for you?
So normally we probably would go for like a quick run or a hike, but it was pouring yesterday, like all afternoon. So wasn't excited to go back out. So literally I got home, and my in-laws are in town for the week. So they came in to celebrate Easter, which was amazing because they did all the cooking.
Nice.
And my mother-in-law is a fantastic cook. So
Okay.
I came home and she made lamb meatballs.
Okay.
And that might sound gross to a lot of our listeners, but they were stinking amazing.
Okay.
So you could smell it with the spice, and
All
and she also made lasagna. And I didn't think the kids would want lamb meatballs, and so traditionally you just have to have a ham. So out in my Traeger, they were smoking the ham. So honestly, I came home and like the food's ready to go, and I'm like, this is amazing. And so we had about an hour till we had some friends come over, and I poured a drink
There you go.
to celebrate,
Mhm.
and I watched a little bit of March Madness, the Lead 8, and fell asleep. And then all of a sudden the doorbell rings, and all right, here we go. And then back on for some company that came over for a little bit yesterday afternoon. So that's it. I know I would normally go for a run. I think that just helps me clear the mind. But yesterday was a little bit different with the crazy weather.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought that the weather was going to keep people away.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first response Sunday morning. I'm like, well, there goes 15% of our attendance today because it's raining. But then Amanda had a good point. She's like, well, what else are they going to do?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it's Easter. I mean, it's raining. They're not going to go outside.
Yep.
So you might be surprised. And I think she's probably right. It might have kept a few people away, but that didn't seem to affect our attendance, even at the East Campus.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
it's really good.
So as far as like we'll hit on all the decisions and some of that maybe next week on the podcast after our
Absolutely.
weekend crowds kind of hear some of
But
those
by
things
far,
first.
I mean, we could say this, by far the best weekend we've ever had.
Yeah.
Of attendance and decisions of people saying yes to Jesus. I'm telling you, that 10:30 service, I just want to give a shout out to all the people that left the 10:30 service. And maybe they came to a Saturday night, the 5:30. You leaving the 10:30 allowed us to have enough seats. I don't think we could have fit 30 more people in without having standing room or, having to sit down in the very front row. And who wants to do that?
Yeah.
So leave people that took, and it was so funny. An older lady goes, well, pastor told me I can't come to the 10:30. Like, that's not what I said. I'm like, hey, would you help us?
Yeah.
Would you consider moving to?
You're not allowed. You
Exactly.
specifically.
So either way, people left the 10:30,
Yeah.
and that gave us enough room. I mean, and I think all of our staff would attest if they were in the space. And I did this every service. 1, 2, 3. Raise your hand if you just prayed that prayer. And I kid you not, DJ, probably a quarter of the room at
Wow.
10:30, hands in the air, and you could
Yeah.
feel it. Like I
Yeah.
would think like most of the guests, that's like a prime time spot to come.
Mhm.
Were in that 10:30 service. It's funny. Every service has its own personality and their
Yeah.
own energy,
Mhm.
and so Saturday night felt very churchy.
Mhm.
Like all my diehards, church people, they're amening, they're
Yep.
laughing at all of my jokes.
Yeah.
10:30, Wes is like, "Hey, please stand as we finish this song." Like half the room stayed seated. Like, all right, looking at band, I'm like,
Here
they're
we
not.
go.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they weren't laughing, they weren't jiving. But I
Yeah.
actually thought my 10:30 sermon was probably the strongest.
Okay.
And maybe that's just because
That's why so many hands went up.
yeah,
That's what-
had to have been right. But no, it's just interesting the dynamics. But just again, a huge shout out to everybody who left that 10:30 service
Mhm.
that created seats and room for what we were able to experience this weekend. And I'll
Yeah.
talk more about that as we celebrate. But
Cool.
man, what a really cool weekend.
Yeah.
And so here's the fun part, and I want you to share this.
Yeah.
A lot of people are asked, okay, you asked us to fill out those surveys.
Mhm.
What do you do with those surveys?
Yeah.
Is it legitimately you make decisions? And so, I mean, you just left that meeting.
Mhm.
So walk us through what you and the Next Steps team are doing for the next couple of days
Yeah.
as we
It
get
used to
thousands
just
of
be
those
when I
shows.
first got here, it really wasn't even a full day. Now it's like we might stretch it to 2 full days. There's a lot of cards. So we do look through each and every one.
Right.
I made a joke before, I think, when I spoke over here, like even you that write, you live on 123 Sesame Street, right? We know that's not real, but
That's
you
right.
still filled it out. Like we see everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go through each and every card, break them down. This year we're doing it a little different, breaking down by service to get some extra data.
Yeah.
Exactly what you just mentioned of like, is the 10:30 service on a Sunday? Are we seeing more first-time guests in this specific service? More decisions made in this service? Those are just helpful things for us to know later on. But yeah, I mean, we take even you're like asking for a friend series. We'll get data for all of those things for sermons. We'll get the data. Majority of the people are invited, especially for Easter, like the drive-by, social media, all that kind of stuff. Got a lot of Superior interest and Mesa Outreach Center interest so far too.
Fantastic.
So we take data over all that in like a Google Docs, and then you go into what we call like, I can nerd out on this.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
all
no, that's
day,
great.
But like
This
systems.
is why I think people. I actually think people care
Yeah,
about this. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Systems and processes, everybody, if you're a first time guest, if you made a spiritual decision, you go into different groups with different communications. And so if you checked like Mesa Outreach Center, Superior, you made a decision and you want to get baptized, you might be getting hit with like 4 different emails,
Yeah,
but
that's right.
that's on you. You checked all those boxes.
That's-
But yeah, I mean, our teams, we're collecting data today, and then over the next week or so, we kind of send all that stuff out.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so we take it very seriously.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I love about the Easter decisions because
Mm-hmm.
of the survey. So a little bit behind the scenes, that survey is a tool that ultimately gets us to A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
So we can, and so we don't count, hey, 1, 2, 3, raise your hand in the
Right.
air. Like we count the B decisions.
Yeah.
And that's the data that, and because we're able to follow up with people. And
Yeah.
that's what's so important for me.
And we even have a system in place of like, so we have some people that may have checked or made a decision 6 months ago,
Okay.
right? So we don't recount those. We
That's
have
right.
in our system like a specific date. So if you're every Easter you check B, your decision doesn't get counted. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
When we do
Yeah.
reveal that number, it's not the same people over and over again.
Yeah, I actually think our people find that fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, is it this? Because we do have the same people every single week that
Yep.
make a decision to follow Jesus.
Mhm.
We do not count them every single week,
Yeah,
right? And that's
exactly.
just so you know, like our numbers. I mean, and that's a big thing for me, the integrity of our numbers.
Yeah.
But also to know, are we doing a good job with our follow up system and our
Mhm.
processes? Are people taking the next step in baptism and our fresh start class? Are they getting involved in life groups?
Yeah.
Those are all things that are really important to me. Now here's a pushback too. I heard another pastor. So we stole this idea from another church
Mhm.
that I just thought this is brilliant. What an incredible way to get immediate information and to be able to follow up. But I had another pastor friend. He does very similar, And he's like, man, I understand if you have, hundreds of people make a decision to follow Jesus, not every single person's going to go through the process of the
Yeah.
follow up and the next step. We totally understand that, but that's not for us to worry about.
Yeah.
We're supposed to cast the net, see what God does. And honestly, I do believe this, that there are people that came to Easter and made a legitimate decision. And they're like, man, I don't know if One Life is for me, but this was a catalyst. And now they're in a really good Bible believing,
Yeah.
Jesus centered church.
Mm-hmm.
That's a win for the kingdom.
Right.
And so I just think that that's important to share too.
Yeah.
That we understand not everybody's going to be a part of our church who makes a decision, but we're following up and we're encouraging the
Yeah.
next steps, the things that we can control.
Yeah. Which
So,
is really the point of like everything you said within the Easter sermon, right?
right.
Like this spiritual journey, we're all going on it. Part of our team is just to try to help
That's
you
right.
take that next step.
Yeah, I mean, I see the church in steps, and I do believe this with all my heart. If you go on a vibrant spiritual journey, you won't recognize yourself a year from now.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm praying for every single person who checked B or even checked C, that they would just keep on taking those steps as God reveals them.
Yeah.
And we'll make it clear. Here's the next step.
Mhm.
But ultimately they have to choose to do that.
One of those next steps too is something special we did. We sent out like kind of a mass, hey, come help us serve for Easter.
Yeah, right.
We had tons and tons of first time like serve team members this weekend, which was really
It
cool.
was amazing.
Yeah, it was on Saturday night. There was a lot of like, "Hey, how do I do this? How do I do that?" And some of
Yeah.
the teams like, "Oh," and I'm like, "No, this is good. This is how it should
That's
be."
right.
Like this, so,
100%. I had a lady in our finance office. She's on staff, and she said the same thing. So there were so many people. People were asking me if this was my first time at One Life. And I'm like, I work here, right? like that's a win.
Yeah,
like
that's good.
we don't know people, and
Right.
it's just the continual growth of our church to see, which is amazing. So praise God.
deal.
It's
Yeah.
and I mean a huge shout out to your team, but I think we should also acknowledge the worship team, the
Yep.
production team, the social media team, our community, everything that goes in to make Easter what it is.
Yep.
And the photo booth areas were spectacular.
Mm.
It's 100% worth to acknowledge that they're the true rock stars
Yeah.
of One Life Church, and we get to be a part of this incredible movement together.
Yeah. So it's not over, right? Like
That's right.
Easter propels us really into the summer, and then
Yeah.
Mother's Day give us another
Yeah.
shot in the
So
arm.
okay,
and-
so here's I don't know if I necessarily believe this,
Mm.
but people say what your Easter attendance is this year. If you're a fast growing church,
Mm.
you can expect to be hitting that 18 to 24 months from now.
Okay.
So let's just use a round number. If you have 1,000 people on Easter, but normally you're averaging 700, 600.
Yeah.
If you're growing fast and you're helping people take steps, 18 months, 24 months, you should be averaging about 1,000.
Hmm.
So what's interesting for us is that was our story leading into COVID. The bigger your church gets, so we're much bigger than that now. I think that's a little bit more of a stretch
Hmm.
to think that will be your average weekly attendance. Because I'm a nerd and listening to past, like one church in Minnesota that we follow
Mhm.
had 72,000 people in service
Jeez.
on Easter.
That's crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to have 72,000 butts in the seat 18 months from now.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yep.
It's harder the bigger you get. I think for us, we probably have maybe 1 or 2 more years where that's going to be our goal
Hmm.
to hit those. I'm not going to tell what the numbers were because they're so good, but
Yeah.
I think that we're on that trajectory
awesome.
still. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're
to see it.
still hitting one thing that amazed me was like we've been kind of floating around the 25 to 30% year over year.
Yeah.
And I kind of even thought Easter we might not see that because hopefully like the people we had last Easter we've assimilated and with those numbers have kind of caught up. And I was like, no, it's still
It's
there.
exactly right where we
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
So that's
Which
crazy.
is fascinating.
Yeah.
Every percentage, but it is a case study that we're hitting those percentages. I mean, we're not. God's bringing that increase, but
Mhm.
we're in line with where we are.
Yeah.
Which means this is really good for our listeners. What we're doing, it's working.
Yeah.
It's working.
Yeah.
We praise God for that.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So set us up a little bit, obviously coming off of Easter.
Yep.
You mentioned like the FaceTime series. Give us a little bit of a promo. What is that FaceTime
Well, every
series gonna
year
be
I like to do a relationship type of series, but because I was in Romans for the first 3 months of the year, kind of push pause on the relationship series that we normally do in February. And so I'm really excited. We're going to talk about marriage. We'll talk about singleness and dating. I'm really excited. I haven't preached a sermon on singleness and dating in a long time.
You made me do it last year.
I
so
did make
thanks
you do
for-
it. No, you did a great job. I think that might be one of the most watched sermons in that series, actually. I think you did a really great job on that sermon. But I'm going to tackle that again. So we have lots of singles in our church. I am going to try to. I'm crafting this sermon right now of just our relationship with technology. We're going to go off the FaceTime theme
Yeah.
about how technology is affecting our real life relationships.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to talk about that. Like, what is the proper place for it? What does the Bible have to say, if anything, on technology? And even how we lead our family, our kids, through technology.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a helpful
really good.
conversation. So this is a perfect series. If somebody like came to Easter and they're like, man, I don't know if I would like bring them to like a Romans conversation.
Mhm.
That might be a little like I think Romans anybody could follow along, but FaceTime is definitely a perfect series to be like, hey, you definitely want to hear this message on marriage and parenting, dating, our relationship with technology. I think it's going to be very helpful for people, very practical.
Yeah.
And then we'll end that, and I'll talk about the role of motherhood on Mother's Day.
Cool.
And then we'll end that series. I do have a dudes talk, but I decided this morning I'm just going to move the dudes conversation to Father's Day.
Nice. Okay.
And so we'll re-hit the kind of the theme back in June.
Sweet.
But then we're into at the summer
Well,
at One Life,
yeah.
and here we go, man.
Yeah.
Do you believe it?
Yeah.
Like
It's fast.
this year, already through Easter, just seems like we finished Christmas, and so today we let our kids stay home from school today because they haven't hardly missed anything, and their Nana and Papa are in town. So Grayson decided to hang out with me. He didn't want to hang out with Nana and Papa. He wanted to hang out with me. So I bring him into the office, and he's like, "Dad, when's the next big weekend for you?" I said, "What do you mean, bub?" He's like, like Easter's really big. When's the next big one?
Yeah.
He's acting all cocky. And I said, "What do you think it is?" He's like, "I don't know. Like, I don't think we have a big day until Christmas." I'm like, "What about at the movies, man?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's pretty big." And then I said, "But honestly, the big push again for us is when everybody comes back from the summer and schools are back in.
Yeah.
Like August, the 1st, that weekend's always a huge weekend." And we'll talk about like t-shirt giveaways and stuff like that as we get closer. But that'll be the start of our Revelation series that I mentioned for the first time this weekend that we're gonna. I can't believe I'm doing it.
We even had a couple people write that in already in the surveys. I'm like, he said he was doing it.
I know.
Okay,
Why are you
could-
asking? No, So Romans was a little tricky. I can't wait to break down the book of Revelation with you on this podcast later this year.
I'm gonna have to study up for that.
But
one.
bro, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I'm even studying and reading and listening to other sermons and like getting my head wrapped around this. I am petrified of the conversation. And I'm not scared of the word of God. I'm just like, I know that there's 1,000 different views sitting out in the seats. And I'm probably gonna make everybody mad.
yeah, man,
But it'll
it
be fun.
happens.
But and it's election season, so is the world coming to an end? Is this it? The red heifers, everybody's asking questions.
Is
about
that leading us right up to at the movies, or is there
Yeah.
some?
No, it'll be
All right.
August. My schedule right now is August, September, October
Okay, Revelation.
is Revelation.
All right.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
And then at the movies. And we're going to do, I think we can say this, we're going to do a 5-week
Yeah,
at the movies series.
it's gonna be awesome.
And then we're on Christmas.
We'll need that extra week of,
Just
of
to recap.
popcorn. Just
Man, it'll be fun.
it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're looking forward
we
to it. A lot of cool things happening,
Yes.
and we'll give you some more numbers next week. But be in the room this weekend.
That's right.
Just because you got your church on Easter doesn't give you a month break until Mother's Day.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
You got to come back.
Got to
You're
come
the-
back. And hopefully the FaceTime will be incentive for people that want to be a part of it.
That'll be
So,
good.
Right, dude.
Well, it was a great Easter weekend. Looking forward
Praise
to
God.
what's next. But remember, the church is not a building we sit in, it's a movement we get to be a part
go.
of to help reach one more life for Jesus.